It has always been in our human nature to push boundaries and explore the unknown. We've traveled across oceans, conquered territories, and climbed the highest mountains, discovered and cured diseases, and developed countless technologies to make our lives better. So exploring beyond planet Earth just made sense to scientists and engineers of the past. And what better way to do that than going beyond just looking at our solar system, but sending people up into the stars? The United States has always proudly identified itself as a leader in innovation and exploration. So naturally, when the Soviets beat us into space by launching the first artificial satellite in October 1957 and sending the first human into space in April 1961, our president at the time, John F. Kennedy, responded by setting an ambitious goal for the United States space exploration to be achieved by the end of the decade.
I believe that this nation should commit itself to achieving the goal before this decade is out of landing a man on the moon and returning him safely to the earth. No single space project in this period will be more impressive to mankind or more important for the long-range exploration of space.
Thus began the Apollo program and the race to the moon, which the United States won on July 20, 1969, when Neil Armstrong stepped onto the moon.
It's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
Also in 1969, President Nixon brought together a group of experts to figure out where NASA was headed after the Apollo era. These experts recommended developing a shuttle, a space station, manned moon trips, and even working towards a manned mission to Mars. Nixon, however, had decided to cut NASA's budget from $5.9 billion to $4.25 billion, and only gave the green light for the shuttle program, announcing it to the nation in 1972. The space shuttle that engineers and research designed consisted of the orbiter, which houses the crew, a large external tank that holds the fuel for the main engines, and two solid rocket boosters that provide most of the shuttle's lift during the first 2 minutes of flight. The Space Shuttle program was in operation for 30 years, with the first launch on April 12, 1981, when John Young and Robert Crippen piloted Columbia into space and returned successfully 2 days later. The final shuttle mission, the 135th one, was on July 8, 2011. Space Shuttle Atlantis touched down for the last time on July 21, 2011 at the Kennedy Space Center, ending the shuttle program.
The shuttle program was controversial right from the start in 1972 for both the scientific community and the public, and people continued to argue even after the program ended in 2011 about its pros and cons. Should the funding of the space shuttle program have instead been spent on research and needs here on Earth? Did the shuttle program prevent us from developing better technology? Was the entire program revolving around manned spaceflight necessary? The shuttle program helped us to learn to live and operate in space, rather than just going in and out and coming back for the purpose of saying we were there. The excitement of the shuttle program also promoted science education. Kids viewed astronauts, these brilliant scientists and daring explorers, as heroes. Astronaut was in the Dream Job Top 10 every year from 1971, when the Space Shuttle program was about to begin, to 2011, when the Space Shuttle program ended. Despite the excitement of sending humans into space, however, some scientists, especially in the program's early stages, argued that manned spaceflight wasn't necessary. Dr. Thomas Gold of Cornell's Center for Radio Physics and Space Research said, "In the science field, it is of course true that some valuable observations can be made by a man in space, but it is equally true that for every one of those that they could be made by instrumented flight at a much lower cost. In many cases, his presence is in fact a hindrance by introducing a disturbance level and by introducing severe operational constraints on the mission. Two tragedies raised major concerns about the safety of people going into space. On January 28, 1986, the Space Shuttle Challenger was destroyed only 72 seconds into its mission due to the failure of a seal on a rocket booster. 7 astronauts lost their lives, including Christina McAuliffe, a teacher and the first civilian in space. The explosion was broadcast on national TV for days after the accident, and the nation was shocked, devastated, and scared. The Challenger disaster damaged the notion that spaceflight had become routine, and many people viewed the shuttle program negatively for a long time after the tragedy occurred. In 1988, the shuttle returned to flight for the first time after the Challenger, but the public was shocked again on February 1, 2003, when Space Shuttle Columbia was torn apart as it re-entered Earth's atmosphere, killing all 7 crew members. After Columbia, space shuttle safety became a huge concern and a national issue. The first return-to-flight mission saw new space shuttle safety techniques and improvements, such as sensors on the external tank and a laser dynamic range imager that can inspect the shuttle for damage, as well as redesigned seatbelts and new spacesuits to protect against depressurization.
Opponents also argue that the money destined for shuttle development should be spent on Earth transportation and other needs on our own planet. Senator Walter Mondale argued that the shuttle program was a senseless extravaganza in space, and that the money proposed for shuttle development should go to solve human problems, such as mass transit, housing, education, and the environment. Proponents of the shuttle program now point out that the shuttle was instrumental to the construction and use of the International Space Station, where hundreds of experiments take place that have provided scientists with groundbreaking information in fields ranging from medicine to physics. On the ISS, vaccines have been developed for food poisoning and bacterial infections, robotic neuroarms have been designed for performing complex surgeries, and more. Work on the ISS is saving lives. Also, materials developed on Earth for the purpose of spaceflight have found applications in consumer products, such as heat-resistant ceramic cookingware. The Space Shuttle program received huge media attention for months after its final flight in 2011. The Space Shuttle program was so important to the United States that even where the three retired orbiters, Discovery, Atlantis, and Endeavour, and the prototype shuttle Enterprise would be displayed, became controversial. President Obama was criticized for giving the orbiters to the states that were critical for his re-election. There was even a bill introduced by Jason Chaffetz called the Space Shuttle Retirement Act, which would establish sites in Texas, Florida, California, and Virginia for the retired space shuttles. Discovery was retired to the Smithsonian, Atlantis to the Kennedy Space Center, and Endeavour was retired to the California Science Center. With the end of the Space Shuttle program came more debate about the pros and cons of the program, especially its cost. Could NASA have found a better use for its allocated funding? Was the Space Shuttle program worth it? Did the Space Shuttle program prevent us from more ambitious manned exploration missions? The shuttle program cost around $196 billion, adjusted for inflation. Each taxpayer paid almost $100 each year for the shuttle program. People didn't believe NASA's original estimate of a total cost of $90 billion for up to 50 launches per year in 1972, and their suspicions were confirmed by the end of the program in 2011. The highest amount of shuttle launches in any year was only 9, and each shuttle cost around $1.6 billion. One of the many reasons the shuttle was so expensive was that some of the equipment for launching, such as the external tank, had to be replaced with each launch. People have called the shuttle program cost a horrifying fact, complete mistake, costly failure. However, 55% of Americans feel that the shuttle program was money well spent, and the same people feel that it is extremely important that the U.S. remains a leader in space travel and exploration.
Many argue that the shuttle program severely limited the development of technology for more ambitious missions to space. Space policy expert John Logsdon said, "It kept us limited to low Earth orbit." Experts point out that NASA made minimal progress towards getting people to Mars during the 4 decades after the last moon landing that included the shuttle program era. However, the Space Shuttle program enabled us to make countless incredible discoveries in space during its years of operation. The shuttle carried many important pieces of equipment into space, such as the Hubble Space Telescope, which shuttle missions repaired and upgraded multiple times. The Hubble has played a crucial role in helping us discover dark energy, revealing the age of the universe to be 13 to 14 billion years old, and providing scientists with images of galaxies in different stages. Many watched the retirement of the Space Shuttle grimly and have since pushed for the development of new spacecraft in the United States to continue pursuing human exploration in space. An element of the prestige of the U.S. comes from its leadership in innovation and exploration, which the Space Shuttle exemplified perfectly. The years between the end of the Space Shuttle program and the completion of new American spacecraft have forced the United States to depend on Russia to get astronauts to the International Space Station. Now that the shuttle program has ended, what are the next steps for manned space exploration? NASA is developing spacecraft to send people deeper into the solar system, such as the Multi-Purpose Crew Vehicle for 4 astronauts on 21-day missions, and the Space Launch System, a heavy-lift launch vehicle. NASA is also partnering with private companies like SpaceX to launch commercial vehicles to the ISS and beyond. The ultimate goal is to end the nation's reliance on other nations to get astronauts into space. So was the shuttle program worth the time and money that NASA put into it? Your answer will likely depend on your priorities and point of view. Should funding for manned spaceflight instead have been directed towards needs and developments on Earth? Did the Space Shuttle program inhibit the development of more advanced technology and more ambitious missions? How important is the leadership of the United States in space exploration? Similar questions will continue to dominate the conversation about space exploration, and the answers of scientists, politicians, and you, the general public, will determine the path of exploration and groundbreaking research and discovery in the future.